Q4 Mastery powered by SellerApp. I'm Riya Mittal and I will be your host for the event. So welcome to day one and make sure you check the description box for all the important PDFs and extra goodies that we have for all of you here. So Amazon Q4 Mastery is designed and curated especially for you sellers out there to make sure that you're prepared for the biggest selling quarter of the year, which is Q4. And of course, to make the most out of Q4, you have to start now. So we have different types of sessions curated for you all, starting from how you can scale your D2C brand to inventory management, marketing, innovation in marketing, how you can save more money on your advertising campaign. So we have everything covered that you need to know. So yes, let's get started. So day one is going to be centered towards building your D2C brand and how you can scale your D2C brand. So of course, I have seen a lot of traditional D2C brands being a part of the current wave that's happening, especially in India. So this session is focused solely on how you can scale your D2C brand, how you can be the part of the wave rather than being washed over by the wave. I think this is going to be super interesting, and if you haven't already registered for the sessions, make sure you do so because we have extra workshops and we have a goodie bag that goes out towards the end of the session. So make sure that you are registered to avail these offers. So we have seen an e-commerce boom, especially during last year of the pandemic. So make sure that you are looking at different channels to scale your brand in, that is Amazon, Shopify, and even your own website. So first we have Vineet Kumar, who is the CEO of Native. Native was recently acquired by P&G. Vineet himself has 13 years experience working in P&G and he knows a lot about scaling a D2C brand. So let's understand how you can scale your brand, some aspects of advertising and marketing. Also, Native caters to health and beauty, which is one of the most saturated categories out there. So if you want to stand out in a saturated category, you have to listen to the points that Vineet has for you. So let's welcome Vineet Kumar. So as I mentioned, we have Vineet Kumar with us here today, who is the CEO of Native. So Native is one of my favorite brands out there in terms of growth. And P&G recently bought Native for $100 million in cash. So this session is going to be filled with exciting information on what goes on in the mind of CEO, which is Vineet Kumar. And he's here with us today. We are going to understand how you can scale your business, Q4 prep, advertising, marketing, and like everything that you need to know about building a D2C brand. So one more thing, P&G actually scaled Native for close to 300% since they have acquired it, which is super interesting. So let me welcome Vineet, you all. So hi Vineet, welcome to Q4 Mastery by SellerApp. Thank you so much for being here.
No pressure. You've built it up so much now. Like I've got to deliver against those goods.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be hard.
All right, let's see. Happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Right. So could you introduce yourself? What is Native and who is Vineet Kumar?
Yeah, so basically I started off my career at P&G, Procter & Gamble. So I used to head up the skincare business in Asia for P&G, primarily brands like Olay. And then about a year and a half ago, I moved over to San Francisco to take over Native. I hadn't heard of Native, to be completely honest, when I was in Singapore because, yeah, it's still an upcoming brand. But it was founded by this gentleman named Moiz Ali. He's a brilliant guy, very well known and respected in the DTC space in the US. So I took over from him as the CEO of Native. I've been over here for a year and a half, loving it. It came at a time when there was a pandemic and so many crazy things happening. So learned a lot. There were like racial tensions and the US has gone through so much. So it's a learning curve for me as well. I've got a daughter, 2.5. Wife is here with me as well. So yeah, loving the life that I'm leading over here.
It's so important to love the life that you're living. And I think, replacing Moiz Ali as a CEO recently must have been so exciting. And I just want to understand more about the change because you worked in P&G for close to 13 years and then moving on from like a whole corporate life to a startup such as Native. How was that change for you? Was it really that exciting? I want to know everything about that.
It's scary a little bit in the beginning because you're so used to the structures and the systems and the processes of P&G, right? I can tell you that there are lots of them. And there's a lot of great trainings that P&G has. P&G builds great managers because they teach you how to analyze data, look at things from a strategic standpoint. So coming over here, it was a bit of a change because there's a lot more ad hoc, go with the flow kind of things over here. So I had to adapt my style of leadership a little bit to not be like, hey, this is the way I've been doing things for like 13 years. And what can I take from there where I bring certain amount of discipline, but also go with the entrepreneurial, like, agility that a lot of these small startups have, which is like do, learn, do, fail fast, those principles. So I think that's something that I have adapted to. But I've also put in some discipline so that at least we know what goals we are going for. Setting long-term vision and goals so that everyone in the team knows where they're going. Because sometimes what happens is when you're a founder, all the ideas in your head and you've not communicated it enough to like the 10, 15, 20, 30 employees. And as the big org gets bigger, you need to communicate them regularly so that they know, okay, where's this company going? Where's it heading? What is the strategy? So it's not just good to keep it in your head. And sometimes it's okay to be transparent and say, I don't have all the answers and I'll figure it out. So yeah, that was a big learning.
That sounds amazing, especially when we're moving in a world where cubicles are like slowly disappearing. And I think that's very tricky to deal with when you're just starting in a startup after working in P&G for 13 years. So I think you've handled it amazingly. So congratulations on that.
I think my team will be the best people to ask it. In case if they haven't had to say, then you should let me know.
If anyone from Native is watching this right now, comment down below and let us know how that's going, because we would love to see the insights. So, so coming to pandemic, I understand that Native is cruelty-free, it's simple, it's effective, and you use all clean ingredients in your products, which is amazing because we've seen this wave, especially in the skincare and the beauty industry, that we are conscious of what we put on our skin and which is also safe for the environment. So just a plug in here, I've seen your sunscreen, which are zinc friendly, which means that they're safe to use for coral reef, which is amazing. Yeah. So as we saw a pandemic last year, how did your brand transform and how did your brand adapt to the pandemic? And I'm sure that using safe and clean ingredients must have definitely helped you. But leaving that aside, how did Native adapt to the pandemic last year?
So I think in a way, as people were starting to look for products that they can trust and looking for things that they feel are safer for their bodies, and the whole idea of that we are one planet and there is nowhere to escape if something goes wrong actually did help us a little bit, because people are getting more conscious about the environment, getting more conscious about their bodies and stuff. So that definitely helped from a sales standpoint. I think the challenges were too on the back end. So it wasn't the sales that was the problem. The problem was the shift of salience. So suddenly from retail, a lot of salience moved to online, right? Whether it's Amazon or D2C. And handling that change at short notice was a challenge because the supply chains were suddenly cramped up. Our shipping timelines started, we used to do it in 3 days. It went up to 15, 20 days. So we had a lot of irate customers and they were like, oh, you know what, this is crazy. We're like, where is my order? It should have come. So there's a lot of managing those changes. And secondly, keeping all those employees who are doing all the packing in our fulfillment centers, they had to go through procedures to make sure that they are safe. So that, I don't think anyone could have prepared for it. I think a lot of companies have adapted well to the pandemic. Surprisingly, it didn't collapse. Actually, everyone's found a way. So I think Native did too. And I think this helped kind of build our resilience to any kind of challenge. So if we can go through a pandemic and survive out of it, I think you've got the resilience to survive any kind of mishap. So I think that was one. And then we also, of course, had to conserve our cash. That's important because, on one hand, you're trying to build inventory because you might think that, we're going to go out of stock or the global supply chains might get screwed. So we had to manage our cash very carefully. So those were the couple of things in the back end. I think from a front end standpoint, we just made sure that we were sensitive about the way we were messaging, especially during the peak pandemic time. We're not being happy and joyful and having ads that are too tone deaf in a way.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, so we had to cancel some out of home placements which we had booked for millions of dollars. We had to change the entire creative in the last minute to be more appropriate for the kind of environment or that was going on. So I think those are the main things that we did.
Amazing. And I really want to thank you and appreciate your brand for the LGBTQIA plus community Pride Month that you did. And I think that was very well done again. This is very important. And that was a great answer. Thank you. So moving on, we want to understand, as you said, this is very rightly said, that we have to conserve cash. And we also have to run very aggressive PPC and advertising campaigns, which are quite expensive on the peak of the pandemic. So we're going to get into that just a minute. But I just want to talk about the new products that you launched, even during the pandemic, which was great. And I want to understand, what was your product launch strategy? How did you deal with that? And like, what preparation, if anyone who's watching right now is also selling or planning to launch their new product in Q4, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, one is of course the design, right? Like, how do you know what product to launch? So I think there is a lot of consumer collaboration we rely on. So a lot of our consumers are very passionate advocates. So they actually tell us, like, you know what, I'd like to see you having a shampoo or a conditioner. I would really want a sunscreen, or I want a body lotion. So there is a lot of consumer feedback that we take to say, okay, which is the next category we need to go? Because our mission is basically to reduce the toxic load in the bathroom, right? So that's our brand vision. Like, so wherever there is a place where we feel, hey, you know what, there is a way to have more safer ingredients, simpler ingredients, and more effective products, we will go into that. So our consumers drive a lot of that. And we look at basically, what existing products are there out there, and we look at the ingredients, and then we say, okay, which ingredients should we take off that are not really adding value? So how do we really simplify it? And then we have a no list of products saying, okay, this ingredients will never make it, right? So that's how we design the products. And then what we do, which is probably what you're looking for, is we launch it on D2C in a small, say 300, 400 prototypes we launch. So it's not like software, there's a beta version. And then those people come back and say, okay, this is the feedback. Then you have to iterate. So you have to keep iterating like software. And then once you get to a place where the repeat rates are like, say, 30%, 40%, you're like, okay, now I'm comfortable making this a big launch. And then you launch into like omni-channel. So we have it in retail and also in DTC and stuff. So that generally has been our strategy. So sunscreen, for example, has gotten off to a fantastic start on DTC. Yeah. And of course, there are some feedback that people have given us saying, can I get in an SPF 50, for example? And okay, so we're like, okay, you know what? That's something we probably need to work on in the future. So they will keep giving feedback. We'll have to keep tweaking the product or coming up with a new line. So that generally has been our strategy. And of course, from a launch support standpoint, of course, Facebook and of course social continues to be one of the most favored tools for getting new customers in. So I think that's how we generally launch new products. So start small, iterate, then scale up with Facebook and other social channels, and then we expand and launch into retail and Amazon. So
I think the two main points from whatever you said just now was listen to your customers. And I mean, they're the people who are going to buy your products, and customer insights are super important, especially for brands who are looking into consumer-centric products such as beauty, health, and anything that a customer or consumer is going to use in their day-to-day basis, especially put on their skin and consume it. So very important. Thank you so much for that insight. The second thing is you have to be brand consistent. So as I understand that Native is plastic friendly, and I've seen some of the deodorant sticks are not packaged in plastic materials. They are completely eco-friendly. They are cardboard, if I'm not wrong. They're made up of cardboard.
That's right, paperboard. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we launched that actually smack in the middle of the pandemic. So, but that was our first, so we made deodorants which are completely made of paperboard, right? And that's actually a good example of one where there's a lot of love. So almost 15-20% of our business has moved to paperboard. That saves a ton of plastic. But if we want to get to 50% of our business or 100% of our business moving, there are opportunities. So some of the consumers have given feedback saying, it's a little bit hard to push up the deodorant. Is there a better mechanism? So then we designed now a refill, which we just launched, 2 weeks back. And again, we launched 200 units and they wiped out. They sold out in 2 hours. And now we will wait for the feedback to see if people like it. Are they saying this is the holy grail, and then we definitely want this? So I think, that was a good example of something that we launched. It was good, but it was progress over perfection. And now we have to keep getting better at it.
Progress over perfection. I love that. And I have seen a lot of brands do the same thing, the cardboard or like paper friendly packaging. And I think Native is done amazing with that, especially with no fragrance deodorants as well. So I see that you have taken important trends that are happening in the beauty industry, and then you're making sure that you're implying that to your brand because you understand the consumer behavior which is happening in the category as well. So kudos on that. So moving on to branding, I think branding for beauty is so tricky. So how do you create campaigns which include diversity? How do you make sure that you're targeting all the women types or men of all types? And I recently saw a campaign by P&G, which was for armpits. I think that was wonderfully done. So how do you include all these things when you're creating a campaign? Because I understand that can be tricky because race comes into play, body types come into play, so many things come into play. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So there's two parts to it. One is ensuring that you design products for everyone, so that it's not just about I'm going to sell to everyone, but making sure that it starts from the design phase. So we try and make sure that whether it's deodorants or the hair care we launch, or like even sunscreens, right? The sunscreen, the general problem is for a mineral sunscreen, for darker color skin, if you apply it, you get like that zombie face or like that. It looks like white polish that you put over there.
White cast, yeah.
Yeah, like white cast is bad. And like, so I used to try the products myself, even for hairy arms. Like sometimes if you have when you have slightly hairy bodies, so then I used to apply it on myself and see at what level does it make sense. But I think our R&D team did a really good job. And actually, the P&G R&D team contributes a lot in that aspect. So they came up with a phenomenal formula, which finally was able to reduce that white cast and stuff. So from a design standpoint itself, we have to start thinking about men, women, different ethnicities, different skin colors and types when you design the product. Then it's about featuring the people in your advertising.
Yeah.
So it never was like that, but last year I made a conscious call with the team to say, okay, we're going to start featuring different ethnicities. We're going to feature, we were under featuring men. So I was like, this was a reverse gender thing. I was like, we've got to feature more men, not just because you're a genderless unisex brand.
Yeah.
So we started featuring more men in that. And of course, there is some backlash. We started featuring people from the LGBT community, families, real families. There is some backlash always. Like I have emails threatening us and stuff for that. Like, that I would like the CEO's address and like, I don't accept the kind of people you're showing in your ads and this is disgrace. You just got to respectfully say that, okay, thank you very much, but we are okay not to do with business with those customers who have those mindsets. So I think we stand very strongly for these, and it's an intentional choice that our marketing team has made to make sure that they include different ethnicities, and you have to be intentional about it. And sometimes you might overcorrect, and that's okay. Like you might feature certain niche groups or fringe groups in your advertising, and people will be like, okay, but that's not your main target. That's not the people who are buying you, and that's okay because you will have to sometimes overcorrect. The only caution to do is not do things for the sake of it. Like, for example, there was a director who came to us and said, hey, I want to feature a person in a wheelchair. But it had nothing to do with the story. She was just proposing it to tick a box. And that can be bad because if it is a story about a person in a wheelchair that needs to be told, yes, absolutely, we should do that. But if it's just doing that to kind of tick a box and look cool and the greenwashing equivalent, that's not good. So I think it's about being authentic as well to what your brand or what the story is.
No, that is super important. And, there's something called rainbow washing in the LGBTQIA community, which a lot of brands do. So yeah, please stay away from that. That can get really tricky. I did see, I'm not sure which deodorant was it, but then they modified their packaging. It's like a curve so that people who are, disabled can, hold it. There's like a better grip on the product. And yeah, there's so many people. I think one of the products out there, I'm not sure if it's what the brand is called, but then they have a cap that opens easily for people who have arthritis. So, you can add people to your group as if it makes sense to your target audience, but just don't do that, to be inclusive. That was very well said. And something which is very important to know as well. So thank you so much, Vineet, for answering that question. So now we're moving to the world, or should I say the wondrous world of Amazon. So I understand that Amazon is just one channel for you where you make sales. So how did Amazon evolve for you in the last couple of years, especially last year during the pandemic? Did you see Amazon grew for you as well as a sales channel, or maybe there was just a lot of competition? So can you give me some insights on that?
No, definitely Amazon as a channel is growing, and that's because of the significant convenience that Amazon provides, right? It is extremely convenient to find products, and B, to the shipping times and the returns are extremely easy. So they've really mastered e-commerce to the nth degree, right? So we do have some of our core. We don't have all our products on Amazon. We keep some of our current seasonal. So we have seasonal, we have fashion, we've made deodorant like fashion. So every quarter we will launch a new collection of scents, and then we retire them after 4 months, right? So they're gone forever. So it's limited editions launching. So some of the past seasonals which are still left over a little bit, we will put them on Amazon so people can still continue to buy it. But in the channel itself has been growing for us. It is absolutely a critical channel for people to try new products. In fact, there's a statistic that showed, I'm not sure if it's right or not, but that 56% of people now start their journey of discovery on Amazon rather than Google. It used to be Google search, but now a huge number of people are actually looking for the product on Amazon, and they may buy it over there, or they may read the reviews, and they may buy it in the store after they smell it or try out. But a lot of the discovery is starting in Amazon. So even if your sales are still slow, I would say it's a great place for discovery. So getting your products out there, the right ratings, right reviews are very, very critical.
Right. And no, I completely agree with that. So as a customer on Amazon, we see that, customer searches for a question on Amazon and does not, the search terms are not brand specific. So definitely, the discovery part of it is on point, I would say, when it comes to searching on Amazon. So what suggestion would you give emerging brands who are just starting to sell on Amazon to beat the competition, especially something like Native, which is selling in such a niche category, which is so saturated? So how would you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think definitely paying attention to the category search keywords that really matter for you. So don't go spray and pray and just go to the most expensive term, which might have huge number of competitors. I think it's important to start with where you think you have a niche, but a big enough niche. So I think leveraging a lot of data tools out there. There are lots of, SellerApp, for example, is a great example of a tool that enables that. To find which are the ones that you really want to start with, right? Because you will have limited budgets and you don't want to blow all your cash on a bad ROAS. So for example, Native started with only playing in aluminum-free deodorants, right? That was the key term that we would play in. Then as we got bigger, then we were okay, we are winning most of it. Let's expand to natural deodorants. Then we said, okay, now natural deodorants also we are top number 1, number 2. Then we started expanding into deodorants in general. So I think you can figure out how to find your niche first if you're a small brand, and then start building. But definitely use tools to guide you. There are lots of tools out there, SellerApp being one of them, and which is very effective in guiding your strategy, so you get your best ROAS.
Yeah, and I think if you're an emerging brand, data is one thing that's going to save you, and we do give you category insights and so much more. So if you want to start your product research, feel free to go on SellerApp and start your product research there, because we believe in our data and we do help you find a perfect product for you, find the perfect category for you. So coming to Amazon advertising. So Amazon advertising is one of the biggest ad networks that there are. So SellerApp themselves, we have managed $850 million of ad spend. So how did Native go into advertising, especially last year during the pandemic? Because I understand that marketing is something which gets really, really, important when you're selling in such a saturated niche category. So of course, the pandemic has happened, you are reserving your cash. So how do you distribute that in terms of, aggressive advertising on Amazon, and how did Native do that?
So we still base it on the right ROAS and customer acquisition costs, right? So because the brand building, and maybe this is for brands that are probably selling on D2C and Amazon or plan to have a multi-channel strategy. brand building happens not just on Amazon, it happens in overall, right? So you could still have great, fantastic ads that are running on social that could drive to D2C or to drive to Amazon. So you could do that, right? But the content really is king over there. So what you put out there, is it resonating? Does it have deep insights? Is it entertaining? Like, is everyone going to talk about it or share it? Right. So I think that brand building has to happen irrespective. But just within the app itself, I mean, within Amazon itself, we've prioritized a little bit more on the category keywords, and we looked at where the best ROAS is, where we're not seeing the right returns. We scaled back, right? So it was a lot of testing and learning, A/B testing, and we had to, of course, balance our top and bottom line, right, to make sure that we're not bleeding cash, unless you have like $1 zillion and your investors don't care. Right, I'm pretty sure you will want to be very prudent about how much sales you're seeing, what are your most efficient keywords, where are you getting the maximum ROAS, and generally, a lot of people might not be a fan of this, but I think that I don't want to play too much in branded keywords, only because I think it's a tax. Because if someone's already searching for your brand, maybe the brand building has happened somewhere else, and then they've come over here. So I try not to spend too much over there, right? And I know some competitors might come and hijack, but I've seen the ROASs on that. They're paying a crazy amount of money on that. So this is maybe an unpopular opinion, but I've generally prioritized category. So.
We love unpopular opinions here, and thank you so much for that insight. Did you run video ads as well on Amazon?
Yeah, we still do. There is a lot of competition. So I think we see when the ROAS is good, but we have certain caps in terms of how much we want to spend on it. So if the bids go above that, then we're like, it doesn't make sense because ROI is just not there.
Amazing. So as a CEO of one of the biggest brands, such as Natives, what kind of metrics do you follow? I know that revenues, orders, and P&L are just one of the metrics that you follow, but according to you, what should people look at?
So yeah, definitely revenue, bottom line, the cash. I mean, I look at cash and inventory because that definitely is what pays the salaries and everything else. And I look at that. An important one which might be often overlooked is as you scale, and depends on how many people, is org satisfaction. Like what is the organization feeling? Are they being paid right? And is there a way for you to measure that, like the net promoter score for the organization? And people often don't look at that enough, and that's when you lose top talent, right? Because sometimes great businesses are built on the back of great talent, right? So it's not just the founder. Like as you're scaling, you need great talent to help you to scale. So that's one we look at. From other metrics of the business, I definitely look at new users. And that's more on the DTC side. How many new users are we getting? What's the LTV, lifetime value? Are we growing LTV? And sacred one for me is customer happiness score. So our CS team is held to very, very high customer happiness score. So once we get complaints and they've resolved it, then a feedback form goes out to the customer saying, how did they do? And we've kept our bar very, very high. Say we need to get like a 4.5 out of 5 kind of rating, so that their happiness is paramount. So no matter how big we get, we have to keep them really, really happy.
Yeah, and I think your reviews speak for themselves. Native has over 15,000 plus 5-star reviews. So great job there. And I think, again, customer needs to know and needs to understand, that the product that they're buying is worth their money. So of course, a positive review, even if you're selling in a saturated and niche category, a review is what makes you stand out from a competition as well. So thank you so much for answering that question, Vineet. And coming to our last question for today's session, Q4. So Q4 is the biggest selling season on Amazon, or not on Amazon, because of course we have so many festivals coming in and people usually buy a lot of stuff. So Q4 is one of the most interesting and the most fun part of selling as a brand. So how do you prepare for Q4, and how does Native prepare for Q4? Any tips and tricks that you would like to give us now?
Well, how do I say this without revealing anything that's supposed to come? But I think there is a task force that we put together, headed by our VP of marketing. So she puts together a task force for holiday, what we call holiday over here, right? It's starting September, October, November, December. So because there's the whole Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but even before that, building up to that, there's so many activities going on. In fact, last year I think Prime Day happened in October as well. So I think first is the brand building part of it. Like, so what are you going to bring to the market in that period from an innovation standpoint that's going to knock people's socks off, and is it relevant for that period? So last year we launched candy cane deodorant, sugar cookie deodorant, like, things that you would not like obviously expect from a deodorant. We just like go against the norm, and people love that. They're like, oh, I want to like, smell like candy cane. Like, who would want to smell? But like, people love it. They went berserk. Yeah, and then I think the second part of it is making sure your store itself has the right look, the right UI. Now, I don't know if it's on Amazon, it's not really possible, but even if you're a D2C brand or in store, do you have the right displays? Do you have the right store landing page? Are you having enough gift sets? Are you sending out emails early enough for people to order so that you don't have those shipping delays that happen, end of the year, and the costs go up? So I think there's a little bit of advanced planning that's required from a logistics standpoint. But definitely have more fun with the brand. Use this opportunity to surprise people. How can your brand become a gift for the holidays? No matter what brand is it, right? I think that would be a good challenge to give your team.
Yeah, no, you can definitely give the holiday feel to your Amazon listings as well. This is something that I tell most of the sellers out there. You can change your product images with like Santa hats and candy canes and stuff. And holiday bundles is a really good idea if you're planning to sell holiday bundles on Amazon. They sell like hotcakes. And the whole idea is to make sure that people are thinking that your products can be gifted to someone. So of course, you have to create that psychology and that brand image in people's minds. So holiday bundles do a great job. And yeah, special holiday discounts also do a great job. So make sure that you are learning from, Vineet here and implementing.
I learned something from you as well. Like I didn't know you could do the holiday cap on the deodorant. I thought you were supposed to have a clean thing, but yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll go try it out on there.
Yeah, no, you can innovate in your product videos as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Vineet. Yeah, and I mean, if we see Native with their deodorants wearing like a Santa hat, you guys know that it's coming from me.
SellerApp and Ria have given that idea.
So thank you so much for being here, Vineet. I'm sure that most of our viewers here have learned so much. Let us know what you thought of today's session in the comment section below. And of course, we have 2 more amazing speakers left who are going to be giving you even more insights on how to be a part of the D2C wave that's happening currently. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much for being here, Vineet. Native is a brand that has taken innovation and has taken major trends in the beauty industry and have applied to their brands in an amazing way. I appreciate the brand so much, and I'm wishing you all tremendous growth. I mean, 300% is already quite a lot, but I hope you guys reach like 500% by the end of this year. So wishing you the best, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Vineet, for such an amazing session. It's always a pleasure talking to a motivated and inspirational person like yourself. And of course, the points that you mentioned are super important in terms of scaling up and being sensitive and listening to what your clients have to say, because of course, customers are actually king. So moving on, when we talk about traditional businesses entering into the D2C online platforms, because that is another thing that we have noticed, right? We are noticing a lot of a shift from retail to online. So we have Dr. Vaidya as one of the biggest Ayurvedic companies in India, and we have a power duo who are the founders of that Dr. Vaidya. We have Arjun and Trisha Vaidya coming here, and they're going to be talking about how you can scale problems that companies face when they start selling from one country to another. And we're also going to be talking about how supplements has become such a big part on Amazon. So how can you stand out on that platform as well? So help me welcome Arjun and Trisha Vaidya, everyone. So a little bit more about Dr. Vaidya's. Dr. Vaidya's have over 1 million customers worldwide, and they have over 5,000 positive reviews on all platforms. So of course, building a brand this successful usually takes a lot of effort, and let's understand how our two geniuses did that.
So here we have two amazing speakers with us here today, Arjun and Trisha Vaidya, the founders of Dr. Vaidya's, one of the biggest Ayurvedic brand, as I mentioned before. So hi and welcome to Amazon Q for Mastery.
Hi Ria, thanks for having us.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Oh, this has been a pleasure. I already did a session with Trisha and Arjun. We were missing you because you're like a missing piece of the puzzle that we need to understand the whole concept and what went behind Dr. Vaidya's and how you can scale your D2C brand. So thank you so much for being here. And yes, let's get started with our session. Why don't you two introduce yourself, introduce Dr. Vaidya's and what you're up to currently?
Sure. So maybe I'll start since you've done a session with Trisha before. My name is Arjun Vaidya, and Vaidya, my last name, means Ayurvedic doctor. I come from a legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda in my family. So my grandfather, great-grandfather, and generations before were all Ayurvedic doctors. The legacy of Dr. Vaidya's actually wasn't a business. It was an Ayurvedic clinic that my grandfather ran. I grew up with asthma, juvenile bronchitis myself, and Ayurveda cured me of this chronic ailment. And so it became more than just a family legacy. It became sort of something that changed my life. I went to the US to do my undergrad in 2009 at Brown University, and I saw the move towards natural organic products then. I also saw yoga being repackaged with yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga apparel. And I thought to myself, we can't let the same happen with Ayurveda. We can't let the West take it from us, repackage it and sell it back to us. So I came back to India in 2013. I did 3 years in private equity at a fund called L Capital, investing in the consumer sector. Saw big changes happen in the Indian consumer. Indian consumers were happy to consume quintessentially Indian products. Ayurveda was undergoing a renaissance as well with the Ministry of Ayush creation. The Patanjali revolution happened. And my grandfather unfortunately passed. So we had this rich Ayurveda legacy. We had these formulations. And I made a promise to him at some point in my life that I'd do something with his legacy. So I quit my job in 2016. And in October 2016, I launched a brand, named it after my grandfather, called it Dr. Vaidya's, with the view that we wanted to make Ayurvedic products appealing and accessible to modern consumers. And I'll let Trisha continue the rest of the story.
So, we got engaged in 2017, March, and I kind of joined Arjun at Dr. Vaidya's. And I mean, I've spoken about it a little, so I'm just going to give a summary. We decided to do online first. We decided to do it on our website first, build on our own website, understand who our customer was, what was the gap that we were trying to fill, who are we trying to reach out to. And so we took the journey of building it on our own website. The first few months and years it's patience game, right? It took us a lot of time to understand digital, understand who our right consumer was. We started with 2 products, and eventually, when we exited, we were at about
80 products.
Yeah, 80 products. And, the journey was great. A lot of sweat, tears and smiles at the same time. We took the business from, 5 orders today, about 5,000 orders a day on our own website, started a little selling globally as well on Amazon.com. And built a team of about 150 people through the journey. And in December is when we got a good opportunity from our investors to exit the business. They wanted to, I think with COVID, Ayurveda just boomed, and, it just was the right time for everybody. And, March of that year is when we exited. And post that, our whole aim has been to give back to the D2C community. So we've been doing a bunch of courses, teaching people, mentoring, investing as well. That's where we are right now.
That's a very impressive story, and I loved how the preparation started when you were not in your own country. I think that's really impressive. So thank you so much for that introduction. So moving on to the next question, I just want to understand how did you take something like Ayurveda, which is so traditional, and how did you revamp it? What went in your head when you were revamping it to the modern 21st century, and why did you stick to Ayurveda? So question to you guys.
Yeah, so I think when I was in the US, right, I saw yoga being repackaged with yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga apparel, Lululemon, and I saw that there needed to be a format change to appeal to modern consumers. Having said that, I came from a family of Ayurveda, right? So I didn't want the essence to be lost. So the premise was, can I take 150 years of my family's legacy and 5,000 years of science and repackage and rebrand to appeal to modern consumers. That was the premise, right? Without ruining the essence. So actually the first product we launched at Dr. Vaidya's is called Live It Up. It's an Ayurvedic hangover shield. So it was a liver protector that we had, but it had effect on hangover. And so I said, look, the product is the same, but the premise or the way it's being sold should be to really solve a modern problem, right? And nobody had thought of Ayurveda in that way. Now, I think that's how the company started. It said, oh, we're going to be millennial focused, we're going to be new age focused. I was young, I was 24 and a half when I started the company. And so that was the idea, right? But very quickly we realized, hey, it's not just younger people or millennials who have a disconnect with Ayurveda. It goes far deeper. So the company eventually evolved into a company that repackaged Ayurveda to appeal to modern consumers and not just millennials, right? So branding, communication, language used, digital access, free consultation online. All of these things are actually key pegs to say, hey, whether you're a 21-year-old in Bangalore, or you're a 43-year-old in Muzaffarnagar, or you're a 51-year-old in Imphal, we are repackaging Ayurveda to appeal to all of you and your families. Right? That was eventually what the company became. And why only Ayurveda? I guess that's an easy one. Right? I'm super biased because that's my family legacy.
Yeah. I think that was convenient. And I think it's a great thing that you did, because I remember Trisha talking about how your grandfather had a whole channel of how people used to order medicines via letters. So you took the same idea from your grandfather and, gave free consultations to everyone who required it the most, whether or not they're ordering it from you. So I think that was a great marketing strategy. Kudos to that.
Right? Two very interesting things. One, actually in the 80s and 90s, my grandfather used to do 12,000 orders a month via post, right? So that's a really big thing. But now really the power of what we built at Dr. Vaidya's is that we took that and we eventually got 1.5 million orders fulfilled on our website, which is a reasonable number. But the great part is it went to 16,500 plus pin codes in India or zip codes in India, right? And that's really the power of how we took traditional clinic and the good things about the traditional clinic, leverage the power of digital, whether it's our own website or platforms like Amazon and the other marketplaces, and really built that access channel to a really large number of consumers across a large part of India.
Definitely. Yeah. And Trisha, what do you think about that? Do you have anything to add on to it?
So I think Arjun covered it mostly, right? But I think the fact that we could reach places where, it's a tougher place to reach, but we could actually give them the opportunity and the access to Ayurveda, to a doctor, to a consultation for free, definitely helped. I love the fact that we could obviously continue Arjun's grandfather's legacy and, adopt the same philosophy that advice, especially for medical, should be open and available to everyone.
That was very well said. And when you joined the company, or you started the company in 2016, if I'm not wrong, Arjun. So how did you convince your team when you approached them, like, hey, let's, create Dr. Vaidya's? And did you have some data points with you? Because as we know, data makes business. So did you have some data points in your mind that you took to them to convince them to start Dr. Vaidya's? How did the whole process went?
Yeah, look, I think it was all in my head initially, right? And so for all early stage founders who are viewing this, I think what you have to understand is that when you are looking to hire in today's day and age, hiring is a two-way conversation, not a one-way conversation. So employers have to sell as much as team members have to also sell, right? And so I learned that very quickly, that it's not just the person who wants the role who's selling, I am also selling, right? And so from day one, I would be open, sell my vision, sell the potential, sell the scope, sell the idea. I didn't have much data on what we were doing because we weren't really doing much when we started, but I had data on the industry and the scope and the macro and the thought process. And I would always sell that, right? Yoga is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US just by taking this and repackaging this, right? So Ayurveda was an even larger opportunity at hand that was available.
Yeah. And how did you go about your market research, and what data points did you specifically look into that made you understand that, yes, Dr. Vaidya is a right decision? Because of course, you already told me that yoga is such a big thing, and Ayurveda in India has been, of course, your grandfather's numbers proved that, of course, it is going to work. But what other data points did you look into?
So I'll tell you about 3 or 4 data points, right? The first data point was yoga in the US from a anecdotal or a experience, but also from a numbers perspective, multi-billion-dollar industry. Ayurveda needed to have the same experience, number one. Number two, from 2014 onwards, Ayurveda was undergoing a renaissance, right? Ministry of Ayush was created, Patanjali revolution happened, hundreds of thousands of customers like you became interested in Ayurveda and wanted to consume Ayurvedic products. Colgate launched an Ayurvedic toothpaste, Unilever got back into its Ayush range. So all of this happening made the industry itself grow at like 15-16%, right? Which is much more than ever grown at in independent India, right? So that was the second one. The third one, which I found really interesting, was 70+% of Indian households consumed at least one Ayurvedic product, right? So while we in urban centers are sitting thinking everyone consumes allopathy, Ayurveda does not have any reach, the reality was Ayurveda is already reaching pretty much like more than 2/3 of India. The challenge is that they are consuming Ayurveda without knowing it's Ayurveda, or they have only one product in their home. So the scope is to really sell the story and get to multiple products in the home. And the fourth and most important one was when I started the business, or when I launched the business, I'm from a Gujarati family, and a lot of my grandfather's suppliers were Gujarati, right? And I didn't speak Gujarati. So anecdotally, what I saw was I started taking Gujarati lessons, right? So every Friday at 12, my Gujarati teacher would come to the office and she would teach, because I felt like I should not be able to not connect with my grandfather's suppliers or with my grandfather's vendors, right? So when I was talking to my Gujarati teacher about Ayurveda, she already knew the ingredients that went into most of my products. And she said, Amla is in your immunity booster, Bringraj will go into your neural tonic or your product for sleep. So she knew the ingredients. And that made me realize that basically, and she was sort of 55 plus, right? So after that generation, really, the generations after had lost touch with this science. While they knew it may be good for them, the way it was being communicated to them was wrong. So that was really the potential. So I think the yoga experience in the US, the proliferation of Ayurveda in India, the fact that 2/3 of Indian households use Ayurveda, and the disconnect between modern consumers, all of these things put together in some sense created the perfect macro storm, plus my grandfather's passing from the micro perspective all came together to eventually lead to the company.
That's a brilliant story. I mean, I love how you pieced everything together and learned Gujarati, because I work with a lot of sellers, and the most things when they ask about sourcing is, having a good relationship with your supplier, understanding their language. So I think you did a brilliant job in that. And I'm sure people who are watching right now are learning from one of the best global legends right here. So thank you so much for answering that question. So now that we know that you've done your market research and then you've hired a team, how was your launch? How were you feeling during your launch, and what do you think you could have done better? And people who are launching their business right now can do better while they're just starting out in the market.
You want to take that?
Sure. So I think when Arjun was launching, I hadn't yet joined the business. To be honest, I was just dating him at this point, and he decided to launch with 2 products to begin with. Live It Up, which was a hangover shield, because I think that I remember with our friends and family, to be honest, 6 to 8 months, we would carry this box with us everywhere we went, and hand out these pills and tried it, tested it, experimented on ourselves as well a lot. So we were super excited because we knew how effective it was. So Live It Up was one, and HerboFit, which was a Chyawanprash in the capsule, just because that was a low hanging fruit, right? Everyone knows, most Indian households already know the concept of Chyawanprash. And here we're removing the sticky, bitter taste and inconvenience out of it and giving it to you in the form of a capsule. So I think those were the first 2 products we decided to launch with, to also understand the market, right? And what works, what didn't. Initially, we had actually thought of doing offline. So we had this big launch event, had a 22-person sales team, spoke to suppliers, distributors, stockists, all of that, and I remember the first month itself got 10 lakh rupees of order, and we were like, wow, this is a big thing. And, obviously made sure that it was dispatched, etc. And soon we realized that managing the 22-person sales team, it's a new brand, right? Dr. Vaidya's per se was not a brand before. Dr. Nattubai Vaidya was a doctor, a very well-renowned doctor, but Dr. Vaidya's was not a brand. So You've launched a product where chances are most people don't know about it, right? And it's lying in the market. No one's going to pick it off the shelf. right? Retailers also like pushing products at the end of the day that's moving off their shelves. It's an easier sell for them. And honestly, I think in 2 months, out of 10 lakhs, 9 lakhs came back. And we were like, okay, what is this? It's not even revenue at the moment. And I think we realized, Arjun, to be honest, very quickly realized that offline is not a game for him. The amount of money you have to put in, you don't want to kind of be blacklisted with the retailer if the product doesn't sell. And we don't know the game. And it's too much of a risk too early on. We were also very young at this point of time. So we then took the decision that no, let's do it online. I had worked at Nykaa earlier. So, we discussed it and we took the approach that no, let's do it on our own website first, which probably was initially a tougher route, but we were like, let's do it so we can understand who our consumer is a little better. And that's how we actually started, right? And we launched on our own website, first with 2 SKUs, launched about 30 in the beginning, quite quickly, repackaged them all gradually with time, took some time. And that's how we started our journey. It took a while, right? And when we hit about 50 orders a day on our own website is when we had that conviction of, okay, this works, this is what we're doing. And then we could scale that up quite exponentially.
Definitely. I think that was a great plan, considering that supplements are packaged in small boxes. So that they can do very well online because you don't have to pay a lot of FBA fees and other aspects of storage that come into it. So that was a really great strategy. So, I've heard a lot of startup owners say that having no plan is the best plan. And I can see that is kind of true to you too. So what do you think about that? Is this a right comment? Having no plan is the best plan for startups? What do you think?
Look, I think that's not the best way to look at it. So Trisha and I teach a course on building a D2C brand, right? And we've written out a playbook. Now, what we suggest, right? Because I had written a 3-year plan. I was in private equity before I started this company and I was in the finance world. So I'd made these Excel projections, etc. I think, look, a 3-year plan or all of that when you start doesn't mean anything, right? But we're big proponents of the 100-day plan, right? And that's not just financials. That's operational metrics, that's targets for yourself, etc. You can set yourself 3-month and 6-month goals or 3-month and 4-month goals. You're in a good place, right? Because in the early stages of business, you may not know what product sells, what platform sells, what your metrics will be, how much marketing money will you need, what team. It's an incremental process of building an early stage business, right? But going completely blank makes no sense, right? So we are proponents of a 100-day plan instead of a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan. In the early days, give yourself shorter goals.
And I think just to add to that, right, I think when we grew a little more, understood the market a little better, I think having that 1-year plan and breaking it down into monthly targets helps the team know where to reach out. And I think the one thing that you have to be really open to as founders is to be agile, right? Yeah. So your plan can change and that's also okay. But I think you should have that agility to be able to change as a startup founder, especially.
Right, because I think since, especially in Indian market, you have to be really adaptive because the climate is so diverse and it keeps changing. So of course, with COVID last year, it disrupted the whole market because the supplement demand really went on top. And we saw a huge increase in the e-commerce market, which led to a lot of competition as well. So this is where agility and I think adaptiveness comes into picture. So of course, setting up small goals help you rather than setting long-term goals. So thank you so much for answering that question. Moving on. We are going to be talking about sectors. So as we see Ayurveda as a traditional sector in the society that, just was recently disrupted due to COVID. So do you think any other traditional sectors, do you see them disruptive as well, or like a category growth that you see coming up?
Yeah, we've seen huge growth in beauty and personal care, at least in the Indian ecosystem. I think this space has grown 83% on a yearly basis for the last 3 years on digital in India. So that's seen huge amount of growth. I'll give you a space which has been disrupted, but in an interesting way as well, right? If you look at travel, for example, international travel has been hit really badly, but local and domestic travel in India has grown significantly, right? So I think what's important from this travel example is whatever industry you may be in, right? There may be some disruption, but from that disruption, there's also some silver lining or some opportunity that comes out of it. And so looking at the opportunity, our family business, for example, is in the luxury jewelry space. The average ticket price of each piece of jewelry is like $10,000 plus, right? Or sort of 7-8 lakh rupees plus. Now they lost their entire offline presence with the customer coming to the store as much, right? So they built an entire digital funnel. Now the customer may not actually swipe a credit card for $50,000, but they may discover the brand, do a video consult, then eventually come and pick up the piece offline, right? So I think understanding the disruption or the changes in the world, whether through COVID or in general with the movement towards digital, and reacting fast enough or smart enough for your business is really important.
That was very well said. Trisha, do you have anything to add on to that?
So I think, we see disruption all around, right? Arjun and I think on a daily basis spend a lot of our time discussing brands, opportunities as well. And I think if you look at something even as a Wakefit, right, took the traditional mattress segment and has moved it digital, like ordering a mattress. I would have never thought about it online, to be very honest, right? But they've cracked it. You look at an M Caffeine as well. I would have never thought a coffee-based personal care range could reach such a large depth, but they've done it, right? So I think I'm quite surprised with the niches that we see, but I think that as long as there is, we always say this, right? There's a reason why you're doing it. You're not trying to just solve the problem for yourself, but there's a large enough problem that you're trying to solve. And a niche also appears that way.
Yeah, and I always tell my seller friends out there to find a niche. Finding a niche is very important, especially when you're selling on Amazon or outside Amazon, because of course Amazon has grown quite a lot in these past years, but the competition on it has been crazy. So of course finding a niche definitely helps. And while we're talking about Amazon, of course I'm sure that you have started selling on Amazon, or when you went online from retail, you would have looked at Amazon as one of your channels. So as a new seller, Amazon journey is so overwhelming. You have inventory to take care of, customer behaviors to understand, keywords to look for, running PPC campaigns for visibility. So when you started selling on Amazon, how was your experience and how did you tackle it?
I wish I had SellerApp is all I will say. I keep joking with Dilip also that I wish when we launched, Dr. Vaidya's online, I wish we had a tool like, SellerApp to help us with Amazon. Truthfully, I think it's Amazon specifically, yes, can be overwhelming, but it's actually quite straightforward, right? There are certain things to do correctly, making sure your listing is correct, making sure your imagery is right, using the right keywords, and you get a lot of data. At times, the problem that can happen is data can be so overwhelming that you don't actually look at it. So it's a bit of a conundrum that you get into. So I think it's very important that you start with 2-3 things, understand it, spend a lot of time on the platform. Like I tell anyone, if you're starting new on Amazon, literally just go and type in Amazon as a user in your category, see what appears, see what those brands are, see what they're doing, see in your category what's a bestseller, what's an Amazon choice tag, right, and try and understand it. So I think though yes, Amazon does seem like a little bit of a scary place, I actually think they've made it very logical and practical to use.
Right. And I think one of the most important things that you need to do on Amazon, if you're going up with some assumptions, make sure that you validate those assumptions with data. And of course, if you've heard Arjun speak till now, he is so thorough with his market research and statistics, throwing those numbers around. And of course, that makes a good, a brand owner.
One more thing about Amazon, right? You're right. It is very overwhelming when you start because there are so many different things for you to do. It's listing, it's imagery, it's keywords, it's campaigns, it's FBA registrations, it's competitive research, it's configuring sales, discounts, pricing, all of those things. I think for everything, right, what we learned as sellers or as e-commerce entrepreneurs, instead of doing everything at 5 on 10, do one thing at 10 on 10, do the next thing at 10 on 10, the next thing at 10 on 10, right? If you have your listing perfect, then you move to your imagery, then you move to your keywords, then you move to your campaigns, then you move to your FBA registration, then you move, do one thing at a time and get that thing right. Because otherwise you end up having everything in that part of the business okay, and you try to scale with it okay, where other people have it much better than you, and you end up paying really high A costs, you end up paying you end up not getting sales velocity, not getting share of voice on the marketplace, and that can be really detrimental to the brand.
Definitely. I think that was a really good advice, and I'm going to steal some of it when I'm educating my seller friends out there. Give your 10 on 10, because this is something that I've seen most Amazon sellers do wrong. And we recently were auditing someone's listing, and they needed help with their search terms. And the client was so sure that their search terms are, for teenagers. But after we presented our reports, it said that the search term were actually for post-teenagers, and like a lot of teenagers were not looking for that search term. So I'm just going to repeat myself saying that if you have an assumption, please validate it with data, and SellerApp can obviously help you do that. So thank you for that piece of advice, Arjun and Trisha. So moving on, I've seen that on Amazon, there's a lot of competition right now in terms of supplements, and Ayurveda, of course, has faced that problem too. So how did Dr. Vaidya's beat the competition? And I'm sure that one of your products is a bestseller on the platform too. So how did he get there?
So I'll maybe talk about the regulatory aspects or the guardrails on the health category, and then Trisha can talk about building bestsellers on the marketplace as well. So from a regulatory aspect, right, it's not like you're selling apparel. There is a certain amount of risk and danger, and obviously with that, legal and compliance guardrails on Amazon for health and wellness products or supplements. And the reason is that because these are ingestion products, you don't want to have fly-by-night operators selling rubbish products and customers getting negatively affected. And everyone knows how much Amazon cares about their customer, right? So I think the best way around this is actually understanding what is allowed and what is not allowed, instead of pushing the boundaries or finding loopholes, because eventually the system is smart enough to find out that you're finding loopholes and catch you 6 months later or 3 months later, right? And when you are having a SKU with serious sales velocity and it's yanked from the marketplace, you're in deep trouble, right? So I think understanding the rules and being true to the rules is really important. And if the rules change, consistently understanding the changes in the rules is really important. Trisha can now talk about sort of how we built winners in the category.
So honestly, I think, so especially the bestseller that you mentioned, right? I think it was a product in a category that people were looking into a lot. Right, sports nutrition was a category that got a lot of buzz. Even Amazon itself will tell you that data points, people were searching for it more. But it was a differentiator in that category. So we didn't play the protein powder, protein supplement route, but we had a capsule, a natural capsule. So that was our differentiator. That was our product moat, right? Obviously, there was an efficacy level to the product, and more and more consumers are using it, talking about it. And it gained a lot of traction even on digital. And I think we had a great spillover effect of our performance marketing and our social media organic presence on Amazon as well. I think the price point, to be honest, was also right for Amazon and for digital in general as well. And I think the more more people use it, more people gave you positive reviews, the more it kind of reached people's eyes better. And that's how it worked, right? But I think the fact that we had a differentiator in a category that had high demand was a standout point for us as well.
Definitely. And adding on to that, I recently saw your video ad that you ran on Amazon. I think it's for the same, bodybuilding or supplement pill. And I really loved that video ad. I think it was engaging, and there were so many benefits that were mentioned on the screen as well. I'm sure that you can all see the advertisement right now on the screen. So thank you so much for answering that question. Great advertisements. And yes, moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about planning. So, we already touched a point on how you should be attaining smaller goals than yearly goals or like 5-year goals. So when this is where supplements and Dr. Vaidya's is different for Q4, right? Because Q4, so a brand like Dr. Vaidya's don't see a spurge in orders in Q4. You expect steady orders throughout the year. So how do you maintain that, and how do you ensure that you're getting steady orders throughout the year?
Yeah, so I think the principle was we are not a seasonal, festive season sport brand, right? Because we were in supplements. But for the companies that are, I think there'll be a different formula. But for us, what we would sort of budget was at all points of time, we would have to have ready stock available for Amazon at the last 3 months average into 1.3 at all points of time, right? So the warehouse had to be stocked 1.3 times the last 3 months average. And if it wasn't, then we'd have to replenish that. So that allows you to have about 45 to 50 days of stock. And so even if you have a crazy increase in velocity, right, on 1, 2, 3 days, you'll never stock out. And the moment you have that crazy increase in velocity, your threshold will be met and you have to replenish, right? So having rules like this, where you have enough stock available that allows you to even survive a Prime Day and have enough stock, that's really important. Because I think the worst thing that can happen for a brand is to go out of stock, right? That's the worst thing, because you have customers who want it, but you can't fulfill it. Brands have other problems, like there's no one buying, I'm spending too much money, but my ACOS is too high. And all of those things are bad problems to have. Being out of stock, or having high demand is a good problem to have. Being out of stock is a problem brands should try their best not to get into, right? And so Trisha would get extremely frustrated from an ops side if our factory, which I handled, was not able to deliver stock in time.
No, it's definitely because you're literally pushing your customers to other brands if you're out of stock. You're literally doing that. Yeah. Trisha, do you want to add on to something?
So I think, the whole beauty of a startup, right? And that's why I guess they call it a startup also, is that growth is there and the growth can be a bit exponential, but you have to also be able to manage the growth, right? Because you suddenly have from one person, customer rep, customer service team to a 25, it all happens quite quickly. But I think, like Arjun said, stock is a huge issue, because the worst thing is having an unhappy customer because you couldn't deliver to them. And in our cases, especially given our category, in most cases, our customers are also patient, right? So you have to keep that in mind every time you do it. But I think therefore I said, we mentioned, right, you have to have some sort of plan so you can plan for stock, etc. So be it a 100-day plan, be it a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, depending on the phase, you have to have some sort of plan. And yes, you have to having stock for 1.3 days, like Arjun said, that's a number we managed and it worked well for us, has to also be a good cash flow balance. You can't keep stock for 3 to 6 months. It doesn't work for a business. It ruins your entire working capital cycle as well. But yeah, I mean, you strive to keep growing, you keep acquiring new customers, but then you also need to look at the existing customers and build on them to become repeat buyers. So it can't just be keep going acquiring new customers. You already have your funnel of customers who have bought from you. How do I get them to rebuy, repurchase, etc. as well?
Right. And getting new customers is always more expensive than retaining the old ones. So I think keeping your customers happy is the key to any business. So thank you for that insight, Trisha. And so we've spoken about how to start a business. We've spoken about how you can scale a business. And now we're going to be talking about how you can exit from the business. And I think this is a very interesting conversation to have because Arjun, how did you decide to exit from a family-owned business? How was that decision taken on by your family? And how did you come up to a decision that, yes, now it's time for me to exit?
So I'll talk about the decision to exit, and then maybe Trisha can talk about what alternatives are available today to brands to exit that weren't available in the past, right? So I think, look, we were working in a scenario where exits were still very new. We were sort of, I would say, second D2C exit in the history of the D2C ecosystem in India. So it was very new for us. How do we rationalize an exit? To be honest, I come from a private equity background. I know how difficult exits are, how few and far between they are, and how a lot of respect needs to be given to them. We got an offer from our investors and in December, and we just rationalized the numbers, and the numbers made sense. And so we took the exit. That's an easy way to explain it. But yes, there's a lot of emotion that goes into deciding to say bye to your baby, the place that we spend more time at than our home for the last 4.5 years, not being able to go to that office anymore, not meeting the team, not being the CEO and sixth generation Vaidya behind Dr. Vaidya's, having that identity go away from you. All of those things are things that come to your mind and sort of cross your mind. Had someone else been in my place, maybe they wouldn't have taken the exit. Had you been in my place, maybe we would have taken the exit. The reason we took it was we said for 4.5 years of work, what we are getting is much more than fair value or very fair value for the effort we put in. And look, we're young, right? I'm below the age of 30. Trisha's not. I'm below the age of 30 though. So for people our age to be able to get these kind of outcomes and the kind of freedom that we were able to step back and say, hey, we've done this, what's next in our life? that's really cool. And we really liked it. And so we accepted it. Yes, it was extremely emotional to tell our team. It was really emotional on December 27th when we stopped going to the office. We had a really nice moment where like we had our team. The most amazing thing, we entered the office, and from the elevator to our desks, we had our team line the pathway on both sides, clap for us like sort of sports players who finished an amazing innings, give us roses and personal message to each of us. And then we called both sets of the family to have pizza with us on our office dining table before we said goodbye to the office. So I think it was nice. Do we miss it? Yes, we do miss it. But here we had an amazing run. We're here telling you the story, which we may not have been able to do. So it's amazing. And the great thing is that at least in India now, sellers have the option to do what we've done with the different players that have sprung up in India over the last 6 months. And Trisha can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think, when Arjun said it perfectly well, right? Like, we didn't start the business to sell. That's just the outcome that came our way and it worked well for us. I don't recommend personally that someone starts a business with the thought that, in 3 months, 6 months, I want to sell it. Because I think it's a very different outlook that you have to, then running your business as well. I mean, and, I currently work as an advisor to a fund called Global Bees, right? Which looks at what is their whole concept. If the whole thought is that in India, brands aren't able to always reach the larger potential that maybe they can reach, right? There are certain things that hold us back, like operational inefficiencies or finance or accounting, HR, marketing. Why not take all those headaches and pain points into one and let the brands flourish and grow, right? So now you have companies like a Global Bees who looks to partner with the brands to try and tap into the larger potential. And then, yes, maybe the founder gets an exit, maybe the founder gets to grow their brand larger and add a few more categories within their brand that probably they wouldn't have got the opportunity to do it earlier, right? So you do have a model like that. You do have strategics like how Arjun and I got, be it a larger group or larger established company, like Marico has also recently done, to be honest, to also go and, buy a brand out. So there are ways to exit. I mean, other than, I think these are the two major ones right now. The other one is obviously you run a business, you grow it with scale, profitability, all of that, and that becomes your lifelong adventure as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. I was overwhelmed when Arjun was telling me his story about your last day at work, and I completely resonate with that. So thank you so much for that insight. And it just shows how great, leaders you both were for these people that you got such an overwhelming response from your team. So congratulations on that. That was the end of the session. But before we leave, we want to understand where this D2C wave is headed. So where do you think the D2C wave is headed, and how can people make the most out of it? As I have mentioned before in the session, this day is all about how you can be a part of the wave and not being washed by the wave. So any advice that you have for the listeners right now, Arjun and Trisha?
Yeah, super biased advice from our perspective, because we are proponents, we are evangelists, we are investors, we are founders from the ecosystem. So my super biased view is this next decade is going to be the decade of D2C. Insurgent brands are going to come and occupy spaces that have been left as niches or larger brands are not agile enough to occupy. Customer behavior has fundamentally changed. My father placed his first order on Amazon in April 2020. He's done more than 25 orders on Amazon now. He goes on his Instagram feed. He buys products from D2C brands after seeing their ads and calls up the customer service of those brands if the order is late. India is leapfrogging. There is a wave that has come already, but we're still at the tipping point in terms of the scope and potential and growth available, right? And so, just be a part of this ecosystem, enjoy the growth that comes, listen to your customers, and build genuinely meaningful products and memorable experience for your customers. And you can build a business of serious scale.
Thank you so much, Arjun and Trisha. Do you have anything to add on to that?
So I think Arjun said it right. And to be honest, I think it's a very exciting phase. Like when we were growing and starting our D2C brand, there weren't even so many, the ecosystem wasn't as built, right? There weren't so many enablers that there are right now. There wasn't as much acceptance also, to be honest, to online payments. I even see that now, right? Cash on delivery, I think it's still going to be part of the DNA of Indian ecosystem because I think it's a trust factor. But I think even with digital payments coming into it, right? The more and more categories that who would have thought could go online are now moving digital. So I genuinely believe also that, we are a large country. There is a room for everyone. Just be super true to your product quality. Be super true to what is your differentiator, what is your product moat, why are you actually selling your product? I think that's very important. And I'll be very honest, as an entrepreneur and as a founder, days are tough, and so just keep a little as positive an attitude as you can. You will develop a thicker skin, no questions asked, but always keep in mind what the bigger picture is, and that's what will keep you going.
Thank you so much for that. This session was so motivational. And if you felt so too, make sure to let us know in the comment section below. And we're always listening. So moving on with our later sessions, we have already heard Vineet, who's the CEO of Native. And now we heard from our power duo on how you can scale your D2C brand. Thank you so much for being here, Trisha and Arjun. It was lovely speaking to you all. And yes, thank you for being part of Amazon Q4 Mastery. And I'm going to move on to the later sessions.
Thank you so much for that informative session, Arjun and Trisha. I love the duo. And that was a great exit that happened in March. And I'm so excited for your future journey. We can only expect more innovation and we can only expect more amazing brands from the sharp minds that you guys have. So congratulations on that. So moving on, I just want to let you guys who are watching right now know that this is day one of Amazon Q4 Mastery powered by SellerApp. If you haven't registered yet, make sure to go in the description below and register to avail extra perks that happens towards the end of the event. Also, a little bit more about the event. Amazon Q4 Mastery is a 5-day event where we talk about how you can excel in the biggest selling quarter, that is Q4. And of course, a lot of holiday seasons are coming in, and so you want to start preparing now. And now is the perfect time for you to prepare for it. Next, we have Ram Menon, who will be talking about tools that you need to scale your business enterprise. So, of course, without tools, all your hard work might go in vain. So, help me welcome Ram Menon, who is our in-house specialist. He's also the director of sales at SellerApp, and he will be helping you with some tools that you require to scale your D2C brand.
Thank you for the wonderful session, Ria. It was packing with wonderful information in terms of Amazon selling. The day one was wonderful with 2 sessions with Vineet and the Vaidyas, providing insightful information in terms of how to build these brands and take it to the next level. And on to session 3 for day one, building a D2C brand, kickstarting your Amazon business with SellerApp, or kickstarting your business with SellerApp, more to be precise. Before we move on to session 3 of day one, just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Ram Menon, Director of Sales at SellerApp. I overlook the entire NA and India region in terms of sales and exploring and ensuring the brands reach the right potential, right? In terms of a quick introduction of myself, I used to be in Dubai, I used to run my own business. I understand what it takes in terms of what a business needs to do in terms of setting up the entire holistic model. I've also worked with SellerApp for the last 4 years, being an integral part in terms of system and building an ecosystem for all the brands, right? As we said, building a brand in Amazon, it takes a lot, and building a D2C brand especially, it takes multiple different points and multiple different aspects. And we're here to kind of explain how and why SellerApp is the right partner, the right potential partner to kind of help you grow in terms of those right direction. Enough about my introduction. Let's move on to the actual topic for the day. That is, why choose SellerApp for your business, especially why choose SellerApp for your D2C focus itself, right? And now as we come on to this topic, we really understand how smart sellers use SellerApp in different potential ways and how we at SellerApp kind of help our D2C brands, our customers in growing their ecosystem and growing the business. The first part is obviously the state-of-the-art technology. Those fancy words, I know it's technology, I know it's state-of-the-art, but now how SellerApp does a combination in terms of pure intelligence, pure data, and combine these two forces to ensure that we are able to provide these data points, we are able to provide these reporting tools and combine it at one single spot. So as a brand, as a seller, you're able to utilize the best potential way to kind of ensure that you get all the possible solutions at one single spot, right? I mean, I think it's the most critical way in any business to do, because to get data, to get intelligence in multiple different spots, it might be overwhelming. But what we want to ensure is at SellerApp, using the technologies, provide solution at a single spot. The second one, obviously, is the transparent reporting tools, right? I think that's the most critical in any business, right? We need to really understand how these reporting tools, how these reports will help every segment of your business, right from your accounting to your marketing to your inventory management to the top level management who looks into the top line numbers, or to a granular level person who actually works in advertising, right? And that's where our different reporting solutions, right from our competitor to our benchmarking, which I'll get on to the next part of it, to our advertising reports, to our keyword reports, to our search visibility reports, to our market intelligence report, right? I mean, we have a ton load of reports which we provide in terms of how we provide the solution. But I think it's really critical for every business to understand that the tools we provide, all the solutions we provide has to be transparent, right? And that's where we come into specifically providing custom-made and tailor-made solutions to any D2C brand. As I mentioned earlier, competitor benchmarking, right? I mean, how do you position yourself in terms of the other brands or any brands in the market? Is that's where SellerApp comes and provide these specific reporting solutions to help you understand how do you position yourself? What does it take to kind of ensure you reach the top of the page, or do you reach to the top of the brand or top of the category in what you're selling, right? And that's where we specifically come, as I said, combining the technology part of it, combining the reporting solution. We are able to provide this benchmarking report, right? I mean, we just recently kind of offer a customer kind of a competitor benchmarking report, and that's where we kind of focus on, right? And that's what we want to ensure, that we are able to kind of provide these holistic solutions to all the brands out there. The next is probably the most interesting aspect. It's combining both the ML powered algorithm, the data part of it, along with our Amazon expert solution, right? And I think that's the most critical for any specific brand looking to grow, right? I'm sure that the brands out there, they do understand that no one can do everything by themselves, and that's where SellerApp specifically comes into a position where we are able to kind of provide solutions, and we are able to provide growth consulting opportunities to these brands. And I would say in literal terms, handhold them to the next step, making sure that we provide at every single step opportunity with insightful information, insightful data, and that can be as simple as helping them understand what is that critical decision. It can be from selecting a good image to help them understand how the market is positioned, to even figuring out how should be the product packaging, right? It can be endless opportunities, and that's where we specifically come and try to understand how do we do these. And that's why I said that's where we come into a position called the custom brand strategy, right? Where ensuring what we provide is a pure service model in terms of a specific brand. How do we customize certain aspects of the business so that we take responsibility for them? We at SellerApp ensure that they do not need to look into, in terms of certain models. That can be probably from, let's say, advertising standpoint of view. That can be probably in terms of a reporting point of view. We want to ensure that we provide any holistic solution for all these brands so that they can be, again, the one-stop partner in terms of SellerApp. As I said earlier, combining multiple aspects, that's your SEO content, right? I mean, without good content, there can be never a good product, right? I mean, how do customers find your product? There's those specific SEO strategies, specific content strategies. How do you market your product? How do you position in terms of what you would like to see? What is the target audience, right? There are these multiple steps. Every brand needs to follow. Every brand needs to understand how to position, and that's where SellerApp specifically comes into place, where we provide specific content strategy, SEO strategy in terms of how do you position the market itself. And the final aspect obviously is the sales and inventory tracking, right? I mean, I think that kind of completes the entirety in terms of how a smart seller uses SellerApp, right? As I said, the sales dashboard to understand an SKU level profitability of your business. How do you forecast your projection? How do you forecast your inventory? How do you manage it, right? I mean, you have the entire, you have the Q3 and the Q4 season coming up, and the entire plan is to ensure that you are well prepared ahead of time in terms of the entire ecosystem, right? Where you're able to project, you're able to forecast these inventory models, you're able to utilize that data and kind of say, maybe by Q4, I need to send in 1,000 units of inventory for the specific SKU, right? And that's where we try to use, combining all these forces in the best possible way. And I think these are the different potential opportunities a smart seller would potentially use SellerApp in the best possible way. I think the next aspect of any business is it's going global, right? I mean, without the aspect of global selling, I don't think any specific D2C brand has been successful so far. Right? I think the initial step is obviously homegrown in their own market, but the next step, as any brand we've seen out there in the ecosystem, is selling in multiple marketplaces, right? And how does one do that? And how does SellerApp specifically help in the global selling aspect of their brand in their ecosystem itself? What we do is obviously one is the marketplace business analysis. Understanding how the different metrics work in every marketplace. As you know, every marketplace works in a different dynamic situation. How the US market is completely different from the Canadian market, to the UK, to the German, or to the entire Europe region, or even to the recently added the Middle East region, which we recently started supporting to all our customers out there, where every marketplace is kind of unique in its own way. And that's where SellerApp specifically comes into a position providing custom-made tailored solution in an all-in-one dashboard for a marketplace, right? I mean, we try to focus on a specific marketplace and provide specific reporting solutions, and how we tailor-make the solution, how we ensure that a customer is able to kind of understand about a specific market, a customer is able to kind of understand the different data points, right? From a product opportunity standpoint of view, from a sales velocity standpoint of view, to what is the number of products a brand is selling, what do they need to focus in terms of maybe the share of velocity of sales, or what do they need to understand in terms of the share of search, right? And that's where our all-in-one dashboard is able to kind of provide this, combining our product ideas and the research solutions. We are able to kind of provide tailor-made solutions to our D2C brands with the help of a research tool, right? Where we are able to provide an opportunity understanding for a customer, right? We just recently launched the opportunity score feature, where it really helps our customers or brands to understand, what is the potential for the product, right? What is the sentiment for the product? Where if you're going to launch on the particular brand, or if you want to understand how an existing brand is doing based on different metrics, our system is able to provide this understanding at an opportunity score level for every specific SKU itself. And then obviously the next step is sourcing the products, right? I mean, I think that's the most important segment, or the most critical part of any ecosystem business, right? Where you're able to kind of understand what is the right partner, right? Obviously, SellerApp could be one aspect of your partner in terms of the marketing or reporting, but finding the right sourcing partner through different channels. Who's going to be a trusted lieutenant in terms of providing the right materials at what time, or what lead time a product can be actually shipped. Now, how soon can it be done? Can it be customized as per the requirement? And that's where to help you ensure that you find the right partner can be used through a product sourcing tool. And I think the most critical part is obviously advertising. And I think without advertising, I think there's no step which can be taken here, right? And we recently have launched across multiple marketplaces, right from Amazon India to the UK to the US to Singapore to even the Saudi Arabia market, where we've onboarded customers. I think the advertising part, or the reporting part of it, or taking actionable insights, is the most critical. And that's where SellerApp combines these multiple forces to ensure that when a customer comes onto our platform, right, when a customer onboards to our advertising tool, we are able to not only provide pure data, but we are able to give actionable insights, so that a single decision, right? I mean, you might be saving a couple of dollars, or we might be saving a couple of pounds, and you're able to take those instantaneous actions which can be immediately reflected on Seller Center, right? I mean, we know that Amazon provides pure numbers, and that's where we want to take a notch above, where we say, hey, let's not only look at numbers, but let's also look at what insights you need to take, what you need to refer in terms of what you need to understand, how do we make a solidifying decision, and how we help a business grow. And that's obviously the advertising aspect of the business. I think it's really critical to understand SellerApp's capability, right? I mean, how do we get to this position where we can start telling our D2C brands what it needs to take to go to the next level, right? I mean, I think what you're looking for is the number one growth partner in terms of SellerApp, right? I mean, we are the number one rated app in terms of the App Store, in terms of the Amazon ecosystem itself. What we also want to ensure that, we understand what the customer requirements are. We're able to kind of provide a robust solution where if there's something customizable, where something can be specifically provided to a client, we want to provide that in the best possible way as a fast-paced executive launch. What we also want to do is provide this reporting solution. I think it's a combination of all these, right? Where we want to ensure that we provide all these aspects of the business where we want to ensure that your business can take the best possible data intake or consume it in the best potential way. I think understanding the capabilities from the customer success standpoint of view, and also understanding, how we can be a potential strategic partner kind of completes the entire possibility of how we can potentially help the D2C brands into the next step. I think the next part will be the most critical aspect to understand, how SellerApp can provide these specific solutions in the best way possible, right? I think the next step is the most critical part in terms of understanding how does our data intelligence platform would be helpful in terms of the entire D2C ecosystem, right? Right from how SellerApp platform works to different modules in terms of SellerApp. We would like to go a little bit detail in terms of how certain modules help certain brands and how certain modules help certain customers, right? To start right off the bat, our product intelligence and market research feature is the most critical feature in terms of figuring out new potential product opportunities in terms of the market itself, right? Understanding how each market would work, understanding how a competition would perform, figuring out small aspects in terms of your FBA fees, what is the weight of the product, what is the potential opportunity score, which is our latest addition onto our platform itself, where it's a new and improved feature where as a brand, you're able to quickly understand, what is the potential of a product based on certain metrics we at SellerApp kind of use as which is considered most important. Moving on to the next aspect is the most, the challenging part, which is the content, which is the listing optimization and the SEO aspect in terms of a product or a storefront or the entire catalog of a brand, right? Where, our pure keywords is where you look into different products and understand the visibility, and that's where SellerApp uses pure data intelligence report and as well as different algorithms to understand what is the search volume of a keyword, now what is the conversion rate, now how do you stack up against your product, what is the visibility for certain keywords against your brand, how are the other competitions performing, what is your listing standard, how is it in terms of what the category analysis would be, how is it stacked up against other potential competitor listings, right? And that's where we look at different features, right? From our keyword tracking to our product intelligence tool to our index checker, and last one, as I said earlier, the listing quality aspect. Moving on to the next aspect in terms of our tool, again, we would like to focus on the three top pillars in terms of the operational aspect of the business, right? The first one would be obviously the sales and the profit dashboard, where it is the pure numbers where you want to look in terms of what is the velocity of your sales. Now how do you forecast your inventory for the Q4 season or for the Q3 season? Now how do you plan and project and say what is the amount of stock you need to send including to the Amazon warehouse, right? And that's where our data intelligence platform would be really critical in understanding the performance and help you make those right decisions. Next obviously is understanding from a business end, how do you monitor these aspects, right? I think one of the things which a lot of customers usually miss is not understanding, where is your competition, where is your benchmarking position, what do you need to track, right? Let's say potentially a good example of our customers, who always come and do certain aspects in terms of the alerts would be the price alert, right? Where you probably have a competition, who has 20 odd products, and you want to understand, what is the price parity, how do they position against your product, if they ever decrease the price, what action do you need to take? Let's say if in terms of inventory, if you ever fall below a certain point, now how do you ensure that you're well stocked? How do you ensure that you don't reach a certain threshold itself? And the next part is obviously to ensure that you engage with the customers, right? And that is through our review request tool, where you can potentially reach out to customers and obtain certain reviews, which obviously help and boost the morality of your product itself and improves its visibility, right? As I said, the share of voice is really critical in every aspect of your product journey, where with more reviews, you end up getting more sales, and that's what the general the philosophy is, right? So using a product review tool, it is a good way to reach out to the customers. And the last and the most important critical factor is their advertising tool, right? I mean, it is the most complex feature in terms of Amazon advertising, and we try to make it as simple as possible. We try to break it down into different modules, from your entire overview of your account to potentially providing insights, giving you automation aspects so that you can take care of your day-to-day decisions, to purely providing reporting aspects to the advertising tool, to also understanding at a very granular level, right? I think one of the most recent features we've actually released is called the product analysis, right? Where at a campaign level, you're able to clearly understand how a specific SKU is making, right? I mean, is it making a good profit? Is it making a loss? What is the performance? Are these campaigns or are these products in multiple different campaigns? How do you track up against it? You need to check these certain metrics, and that's where we like to break it in terms of the crunch and say, advertising is broken down into different levels. We try to make it as robust as possible, and obviously, with Amazon advertising being complex, and going back to the earlier discussion which we had, was the state-of-the-art technology, right? We want to ensure that we are up to date with what Amazon requires, and that will kind of serve the purpose for not only the brands, right, but customers who aspire to be a big seller one day. I think it's a good way to summarize this entire discussion, what we had in simple terms, right? I mean, we've had discussions about how SellerApp can be a growth partner. We've had discussions about how our customer success team has helped over 9,000 plus sellers in terms of the consultation calls, in terms of different aspects of the business. We've spoken about how our platform uses data intelligent decisions and helps brands in making those finer and granular decisions, through reporting, through our advertising module, through our listing keyword research module, through a sales dashboard, right? And I think it is a good way to summarize and say, SellerApp is a strategic consultant for any brand or any potential brand looking to grow, right? I mean, we have various aspects we can look into, right? From our desirability metrics to our search optimization to our advertising strategy to our brand positioning. I mean, we ideally want to handhold our customers into making the right decision, and that's where we kind of thrive our best opportunity. I mean, we have worked with over 35 sellers, who have been doing a $1 million monthly recurring revenue, right? And I think that is tremendous, where we have seen the up and down in terms of a business. We have seen how a brand has exploded into the market. We have seen how to grow a brand into a nurturing phase to a kind of a exponential phase, right? I think we have been part of the journey with multiple different brands where we can kind of relate to them, and we are able to understand what they really require, right? And that's why I like to usually put it in a way saying that we are the strategic consultant for any partner who's looking to kind of grow their business, right? I mean, we're looking to ensure that they expand their business so that they are successful, and once they're successful, obviously we want to be part of their entire journey itself. I think just to kind of again summarize, right? I mean, I think we've spoken about multiple different aspects, and that's where how and SellerApp has come into place, right? I mean, we've been into the data industry, we've been into the data e-com business for the last couple of years. I mean, we started our journey way back in 2017. We probably had a team of probably 5 or 6 members, and now we've grown to a team of 60 different individuals with different potential, right? And that's where we kind of again want to combine our forces, right? And that's where kind of our vision is. Our goal is to help customers in different aspects. I mean, we worked with brands, we worked with agencies, we worked with 18,000 odd customers who use the different tools, who use our platform, who use our growth consulting model, and that's where we want to sprint your Amazon growth, along with SellerApp, and that's our kind of motto, right? I think our motto, what we really want to talk about is sprint your Amazon growth with SellerApp. I think that is the most critical part, where we not only want to help our customers in a small aspect, but whichever possible way, right? It might be connecting to our partners, might be also utilizing our existing resources, right? That's how SellerApp has begun to come, right? I mean, it is an entire journey, and we want to be part of the journey. I know that I've spoken a lot, and I know that we have a lot more sessions coming up in the next few days. Again, feel free to attend all the sessions. I personally feel it'll be really important, and I wish all the sellers good luck in the Q4 season, and if anything is required, rest assured your SellerApp is here to kind of help you. Now I'd like to hand over the baton to Ria, who will continue with the sessions. I'm sure the sessions will be awesome for the next 4 days. And Ria, over to you, and good luck with the rest of the days in terms of the Q4 mastery.
Thank you so much for that informative session, Ram. It's always a pleasure listening to you speak. And I can see how SellerApp can fit perfectly into your business journey or your Amazon journey as well. So thank you so much, Ram. And let's have a quick recap about what we have learned today. So first we had Vineet Kumar, who is the CEO of Native. Native was recently acquired by P&G, and he spoke about how you can be a part of the D2C wave and not being washed by the wave. He also spoke about the current e-commerce trends. Then we had Arjun and Trisha Vaidya, who are the founders of Dr. Vaidya's, the biggest Ayurvedic company in India, and they spoke about how you can scale your D2C business and how you can become a global legend from a traditional business to an international business. And then we had our in-house specialist Ram Menon, who spoke about the tools that you need to make sure that your D2C journey is headed into the right direction. So thank you so much for that informative session, Ram. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. This was end of day 1. So let me give you a little bit of sneak peek on what's happening tomorrow. So tomorrow we are going to be talking about funding and how you can find funnels and channels for more funding for your business and how you can save up money on your VAT and taxes as well. So I think this is a really important session for you all if you want your Q4 to look a little bit like a chink. So I'm going to see you all tomorrow, and let's fire up for that. Until the next time, happy selling.